Welcome to my channel, HFY Story Hub. The alien mother crashed onto the colony with a dead engine, a dying child, and a warning the entire galaxy feared. Do not let a human touch her. But Ethan Vale didn't hear the warning until after he carried her son out of the fire with his bare hands. And when the silver light exploded across the desert, every military satellite above Orion Ridge suddenly turned toward one man. Not the alien woman. Not the crashed ship. The human. Because no species in recorded history had ever survived contact with the Valari mind link. Yet Ethan Vale stood there unharmed, while the alien mother stared at him like he had broken the laws of the universe. The twin suns were sinking behind the Black Mountains when Ethan finally shut down the mining generator. The machine hissed violently before falling silent. About time, Ethan muttered, wiping grease across his sleeve. The desert colony of Orion Ridge stretched endlessly around him. Rusted towers, cargo pipes, old mining crawlers buried beneath years of sandstorms. Nothing beautiful, nothing alive, except the tiny habitat waiting for him near the canyon ridge.
Dad.
Ethan turned just in time to see his daughter racing toward him through the dust. Maya nearly crashed into him at full speed. "You're late again," she announced dramatically. Ethan grunted as he lifted her easily into his arms. "I'm raising a very judgmental child. You forgot, didn't you?" He paused, then sighed. "My birthday." Maya pointed at him triumphantly. "I knew it." Ethan laughed quietly for the first time all day. After Lena died, moments like this became rare. 3 years ago, the mine collapse had taken everything from him in less than 10 seconds. Since then, life had become simple. Work. Survive. Protect Maya. Repeat. The little girl grabbed his hand and dragged him toward the habitat dome. "I made dinner myself," she said proudly. "That sounds medically unsafe. I only burned one thing. That somehow worries me more." Maya giggled loudly. Inside the habitat, warm yellow light filled the cramped room. Ethan stopped the moment he saw the table. A crooked chocolate cake sat in the center beside 2 steaming plates of synth noodles. Tiny glowing paper stars hung from the ceiling, cut from old navigation maps. Maya shifted nervously. "It's not perfect." Ethan felt something painful tighten inside his chest. "It's perfect," he whispered. For a second, he could almost hear Lena laughing in the kitchen again. Maya smiled. Then suddenly, warning alert. Warning alert. Unauthorized atmospheric entry detected. The entire habitat shook violently. A sonic boom ripped across the colony. Maya screamed softly. Ethan rushed to the window. Something enormous burned through the atmosphere, trailing silver fire across the darkening sky. Not human. The ship moved too smoothly. Its surface glowed like liquid metal beneath the flames. "Dad," Maya whispered fearfully. The vessel spun uncontrollably before smashing into the desert less than 2 kilometers away. The explosion lit the horizon blue. Then silence returned.
Heavy. Wrong.
Ethan grabbed his coat instantly. "You're staying here." Maya's face fell. "But lock the door behind me. What if it's pirates? Then I'll tell them your cooking already killed me."
Dad.
He smiled faintly and grabbed the med kit hanging beside the door. "Out here, you answer distress calls. No matter who crashed, even if it got you killed." The desert wind screamed around him as he crossed the dunes under the rising moons. Far above, strange lights flickered in orbit. Watching. Tracking. The wreckage looked impossible up close. The ship had no visible engines. No seams. No metal bolts. Its silver hull pulsed faintly, like living skin. Ethan approached cautiously. Then he heard crying. A child. He immediately ran toward the broken cockpit. The hatch had folded inward during impact. Ethan jammed his plasma cutter into the crack and forced the door open with a burst of sparks. Heat exploded outward. Smoke rolled across the sand. And through the flames, he saw her. The alien woman sat trapped beneath twisted debris, clutching a small boy tightly against her chest. Her skin glowed soft violet beneath the firelight. Silver markings moved beneath her flesh like streams of light flowing underwater. Long white hair spilled around her shoulders. but her eyes stopped Ethan cold. Bright silver. Terrified.
Desperate.
Beautiful. The woman flinched the moment she saw him. Human, she whispered weakly. Blood ran down the side of her face. The child in her arms barely moved. He needs help, she pleaded in broken English. Please. Ethan immediately knelt beside her. The metal beam crushing her leg was heavy enough to break human bone. He shoved against it hard, muscles straining until the twisted wreckage finally lifted enough for her to pull free. She gasped painfully. The child suddenly coughed violently. Ethan looked down. The boy's skin was turning pale gray. Not normal. Not good. The woman's voice trembled. His core is collapsing. Ethan didn't understand what that meant, but he recognized a dying child when he saw one. He reached toward the boy, and the woman panicked instantly. No. A pulse of invisible force exploded outward. The wreckage shook violently. Sand blasted across the dunes. Ethan stumbled backward in shock. The woman looked horrified. I cannot control it, she whispered shakily. Please stay back. Then the child stopped breathing. Everything froze. The mother made a sound Ethan would never forget. Not a scream. Something worse. Pure, helpless terror. And suddenly Ethan stopped thinking. He threw aside his gloves and grabbed the boy from her arms. The moment human skin touched Valari skin, silver light detonated across the desert. The ship screamed. The dunes trembled. Ethan's vision vanished beneath a tidal wave of emotion crashing into his mind.
Fear.
Loneliness.
Grief.
Love so powerful it physically hurt. For one impossible second, he felt the alien mother's soul touching his own. Then, silence. The light disappeared. Ethan staggered backward, holding the boy tightly against his chest.
Alive.
Breathing. The child's silver eyes slowly opened. The alien woman stared at Ethan in complete horror. You survived, she whispered. Far above Orion Ridge, military satellites suddenly activated all at once. Red warning signals flashed across every colony screen. Priority alert. Valari royal contact detected. Unauthorized human link established. Deployment order issued. And deep in orbit, warships began descending toward the colony. The first warship appeared above Orion Ridge less than 10 minutes later. It descended silently through the clouds like a blade falling from heaven. Every light in the colony went dark. Mining rigs shut down. Communication towers died. Even the wind seemed to stop. Ethan stood frozen beside the crashed ship, still holding the alien boy against his chest while red warning lights flashed across the desert. The child was alive now, breathing steadily. Impossible. The alien mother slowly rose despite her injured leg, silver eyes locked entirely on Ethan. You touched him, she whispered. Ethan frowned.
Yeah.
That's usually how carrying works. Her expression didn't change. You should be dead. Before Ethan could answer, the child suddenly wrapped tiny fingers around his jacket. The boy looked up weakly. Safe, he whispered softly. The alien mother's breath caught. Then she looked at Ethan differently. Not with fear anymore. With disbelief. A low mechanical voice suddenly thundered across the desert. Unidentified human. Step away from the Valari. Ethan turned sharply. 3 armored dropships descended onto the dunes, surrounding the crash site. Black soldiers poured out carrying pulse rifles glowing blue in the darkness. Colonial security forces.
Great.
Ethan immediately stepped protectively in front of the alien woman and child. A commander removed his helmet as he approached. Captain Rice.
Tall. Scarred.
Angry at the universe, 24 hours a day. His eyes widened when he saw Ethan. Vale, he snapped. What the hell are you doing? Helping crash survivors. Rice looked past him toward the silver-skinned woman. Then his entire face drained of color. Oh no. One soldier whispered nervously, Sir, that's Valari. Another stepped backward immediately. Fear spread through the squad like wildfire. The alien mother straightened slowly despite the blood running down her leg. They found us, she whispered quietly. Rice raised his rifle instantly. Everybody stay back from her. Ethan moved without thinking. He stepped directly between the soldiers and the woman. She's injured. She's Valari. And Rice stared at him like he had lost his mind. Ethan, listen carefully. The Volari don't just communicate. They connect mentally. Physical contact causes neural collapse in almost every known species. Ethan glanced down at the child still holding his jacket. Well, guess I'm built different. Nobody laughed, because the soldiers looked terrified. One of them suddenly pointed upward. Sir, a second ship emerged from the clouds. But this one wasn't colonial. The vessel was enormous. Jet black, covered in glowing silver symbols. The moment the alien mother saw it, fear flashed across her face so violently that Ethan felt it himself somehow.
Not guessed. Felt.
Like her emotions brushed against his mind. They're here, she whispered. The child clung tighter to Ethan instantly. Captain Rice swore under his breath. Everybody defensive positions. The black warship stopped directly above the colony. Then a voice echoed from the sky.
Cold. Calm.
Inhumanly perfect. Return the child, Alara Vane. The alien woman trembled. Ethan looked at her carefully. That your name? She nodded slowly. Who are they? Her silver eyes darkened painfully. My people. The massive ship released smaller attack crafts that descended toward the surface. Rice cursed loudly. We are not equipped for this. One of the soldiers looked terrified. Sir, command says do not engage the Volari under any circumstances. Wonderful, Rice growled. So, we just die politely? The child suddenly buried his face against Ethan's chest. They hurt Mama. Ethan felt something cold settle inside him. The protective instinct arrived instantly.
Raw.
Primal.
Human.
He looked at Alara. Why are they after him? She hesitated, then finally whispered, My son was born different. The black ships continued descending. Alara's glowing markings flickered beneath her skin. He possesses a royal neural core. The Volari High Dominion wants to weaponize his abilities. Ethan frowned. He's a child. To them, she whispered bitterly, he is a living weapon. The attack crafts landed hard across the dunes. Silver-armored figures emerged carrying staffs of glowing energy. Not soldiers. Hunters. One stepped forward.
Tall.
Elegant.
Terrifying.
A silver crown floated slightly above his head surrounded by rotating light. The colony soldiers immediately lowered their weapons nervously. Even Captain Rice looked shaken. The crowned figure stared directly at Alara. You have endangered the Dominion, he said calmly. Then his eyes moved toward Ethan. And stopped. For the first time, emotion appeared on the alien's face. Confusion. You survived contact, he said slowly. Ethan shrugged slightly. Seems rude not to. The alien ignored the joke completely. That is impossible. The little boy suddenly stepped away from Ethan. Weakly. Carefully. Then hid behind Ethan's leg instead of his mother's. Every Volari on the battlefield froze. The crowned figure's expression changed instantly.
Shock.
He chose the human. Alara looked stunned herself. The child peeked around Ethan nervously. They feel empty, he whispered softly. Ethan crouched slightly. Who does?
Them.
The boy pointed toward the silver warriors. No hearts. No warmth. A strange silence spread across the battlefield. Then the crowned alien finally spoke again. Return with us willingly, Alara, and the human colony will be spared. Ethan immediately noticed something. He didn't say safe. He said spared. Big difference. Alara slowly stepped closer to Ethan. Fear radiated through her body. Not for herself. For her son. I will not let you take him, she whispered. The crowned figure sighed almost sadly. Then humanity will suffer for your selfishness. Several soldiers panicked immediately. Captain Rice raised his rifle again. You threaten this colony again, and... A wave of invisible force suddenly exploded outward. Every human soldier collapsed screaming. Rice dropped to his knees, clutching his head. Blood ran from one soldier's nose. Another blacked out instantly. Ethan staggered violently as pressure slammed into his skull. Then stopped. The crowned alien stared at him in disbelief. Everyone else was down. Except Ethan. He was still standing. The little Valari boy looked up at him with wide silver eyes and smiled. The crowned figure's calm expression finally cracked. "What are you?" Ethan slowly lifted his head. Blood trickled from his nose. But his eyes stayed locked on the alien leader. "Human." The desert fell completely silent. Human soldiers lay scattered across the sand, clutching their heads in agony, while the Valari warriors stared at Ethan Vale like he was something unnatural. Captain Rice struggled to breathe on one knee. "What did they do to us?" Ethan wiped blood from beneath his nose and stepped forward instinctively, shielding Alara and her son behind him. The Crown Valari leader watched him carefully now. Not with arrogance anymore. With caution. "That attack," Ethan said coldly, "doesn't work on humans?" The alien's silver eyes narrowed. "It should have shattered your nervous system." "Yeah," Ethan muttered. "Been a weird night." Behind him, the little Valari boy tugged Ethan's sleeve. "They're scared," the child whispered softly. A fleet of psychic superbeings had arrived from space, and somehow they were afraid of a mechanic from a mining colony. The crowned alien slowly descended the dune toward him. "My name is Vale Torin," he announced calmly. "Voice of the Dominion." "Sounds important." "It is." The air around Vale shimmered strangely, as if reality bent around him. Every instinct Ethan had screamed danger, but he refused to move. Vale studied him intensely. "Your species was classified centuries ago," he said quietly. "Primitive, violent, emotionally unstable." Captain Rice groaned painfully from the sand. "Fair enough." Vale ignored him. "But no human has ever survived direct Valari soul contact." His gaze sharpened. "Yet you formed a stable resonance instantly." Ethan frowned. "I have absolutely no idea what that means." Alara stared at Ethan carefully. "It means your mind accepted ours instead of collapsing." The little boy nodded quickly. "He's warm." Vale's expression darkened immediately. The other Valari shifted uneasily. Ethan noticed it instantly. Whatever the child meant, it mattered. Suddenly, one of the black warships above the colony activated. A massive red beam scanned across Orion Ridge. Buildings flickered. Machines died. The colony power grid collapsed entirely. Panic alarms echoed through the settlement. Captain Rice looked upward in horror. "They're preparing orbital suppression." Ethan looked at Vale sharply. "You planning to wipe out the colony?" Vale answered without emotion. "If necessary." That single sentence changed something inside Ethan instantly. The tired mechanic disappeared. What remained was something deeply human. Protective rage. "You threaten my daughter again," Ethan said quietly, "and I'll tear that ship out of the sky myself." Several Valari warriors visibly tensed. Because he meant it. Alara stared at him in shock. Humans were weaker than most galactic species. No psychic abilities. No superior technology. But aliens never understood what happened when humans protected family. Vale tilted his head slightly. "You would challenge an empire for 2 lives you met less than 1 hour ago?" Ethan looked back at Maya standing near the fallen soldiers. Terrified. Small. Alone. Then at Alara desperately holding her son. "I'd challenge the universe for them." Silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. The little Valari boy stepped fully beside Ethan now instead of hiding. A faint silver glow surrounded him. Then something impossible happened. The boy reached for Ethan's hand. Every Valari warrior recoiled instantly. "No!" one shouted. Too late. The moment their hands touched, silver light exploded across the battlefield. But this time Ethan stayed standing. Images slammed into his mind violently. A giant silver city beneath alien stars. Crystal towers stretching forever. Millions of minds connected together. And at the center, a throne. Cold. Empty.
Hungry.
Then came fear. Not the child's fear. The Dominion's. Ethan suddenly understood why they hunted him. The boy wasn't just gifted. He could feel emotions individually. Something the Valari Empire had lost generations ago. Their people were connected permanently to a psychic network called the Chorus. No privacy. No individuality. No true love. No true grief. Everything shared. Everything controlled. But the child was different. He could feel compassion, freedom, humanity, and the Dominion feared that more than war. The vision vanished. Ethan staggered backward, breathing hard. Alara grabbed him immediately. Ethan, he looked at Vale in horror. You're not protecting your empire, Ethan whispered. You're protecting control. Vale's face became ice. The chorus brings peace. No, Ethan snapped. It kills freedom. The Valari warriors raised weapons instantly. Alara stepped beside Ethan without hesitation. Silver energy spread across her skin. You will not touch him, she said fiercely. Vale looked genuinely saddened. You were once one of us, Alara. I still am, she answered. That is why I know we became monsters. The child suddenly squeezed Ethan's hand tighter, then looked upward fearfully. They called more ships. Everyone froze. A deep rumble echoed across the heavens. 3 enormous warships descended through the clouds. Not patrol ships. Destroyers. Captain Rice stared upward in disbelief. Dear God. The colony loudspeakers crackled to life. Emergency evacuation. All citizens seek shelter immediately. The first destroyer activated weapons. A massive cannon unfolded beneath its hull, glowing blood red. Ethan looked at Vale furiously. You said they'd spare the colony. Vale didn't answer, which was answer enough. Maya suddenly ran toward Ethan through the chaos.
Dad.
He caught her instantly. She buried herself against him, trembling violently. I'm scared. Ethan held her tightly. It's okay. I've got you. Then Maya looked up at Alara and the child. They're scared too. Those simple words hit Ethan harder than anything else that night. Because she was right. Human. Alien. None of it mattered. Parents protecting children looked exactly the same across the universe. Vale watched silently as Ethan stood there holding his daughter while shielding another species with his own body. And for the first time, the Valari leader looked uncertain. The destroyers blocked out the stars above Orion Ridge. Their shadows swallowed the colony while warning sirens screamed across the desert. People ran through the streets. Children cried. Mining crews abandoned equipment and fled underground. And in the middle of it all, Ethan Vale stood beside an alien mother and her child facing an empire powerful enough to erase planets. Captain Rice finally staggered back to his feet. We can't fight this, he rasped. Those ships could vaporize the colony. Vale Torin remained perfectly calm. Return the child willingly, he said coldly. And your colony may survive. Alara stepped closer to Ethan instantly. My son is not your weapon. He belongs to the chorus. He belongs to himself. The air between them felt ready to explode. Then suddenly, every scanner on the battlefield erupted with alarms. Warning! Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Bright tears opened across the sky. Ships began emerging from hyperspace one after another. Cargo haulers, mining transports, civilian freighters. Old patrol ships held together by scrap metal and hope. Not military vessels. Human ships.
Hundreds of them.
Captain Rice stared upward in disbelief. No way. The little Valari boy smiled weakly. They heard us. A rough voice suddenly burst through every comm channel. This is Captain Harland of the freighter Broken Dawn. Another voice joined instantly. Mining convoy Helios responding. Then another. Anderson cargo fleet entering defensive formation. More voices flooded the system every second. Pilots. Traders. Prospectors. Ordinary people. None of them soldiers. But all of them had answered the same call. A human colony was under attack. That was enough. Above Orion Ridge, the human ships spread outward between the colony and the Valari destroyers. A wall of rusted steel. Tiny compared to the enemy fleet. But they still came. Vale stared at the growing armada with confusion. They are outmatched, he whispered. Ethan crossed his arms.
Yeah.
Then why would they come? Ethan looked directly at him. Because humans don't abandon people. Silence. The answer genuinely disturbed the Valari leader. One of the destroyers suddenly powered its weapons. A massive red cannon charged beneath the hull. Captain Rice cursed loudly. They're going to fire. Panic spread across the colony. The civilian ships were too weak. They wouldn't survive one shot. Maya grabbed Ethan's hand tightly. Dad. Ethan looked down at her terrified face. Then at Alara holding her son. Then at the human ships preparing to die protecting strangers. And something inside him finally snapped. Not fear. Not rage. Something deeper. Human stubbornness. He stepped forward alone into the open desert. Ethan, Alara shouted, but he kept walking. The destroyer cannon continued charging overhead. Red light flooded the sky. Then Ethan spoke into the colony comm system. I know most of you don't know me. The entire system went silent. But you still came. More ships continued arriving behind the first wave.
Old.
Damaged. Civilian.
Human.
They think fear controls people, Ethan said, staring at the Valari fleet. They think power matters more than love. Human ships slowly moved closer together above the colony. A shield wall, weak individually, unbreakable together. But humans survived the harshest worlds in the galaxy for one reason, Ethan continued. He looked back toward Maya. Then Alara and her son. We protect our own. The words hit like thunder. Across the battlefield, miners stood beside colony security forces. Mechanics grabbed weapons. Ordinary people chose to stand their ground. Vale stared at the humans in growing disbelief. You would die for each other so easily. Ethan looked back calmly. Wouldn't you? The Valari leader said nothing, because he already knew the answer.
No.
The chorus had removed fear, but it had also removed love. The little Valari boy suddenly walked past everyone.
Small. Weak.
Terrified, yet somehow fearless. Silver light slowly spread around him. I don't want anyone to hurt anymore, he whispered. The glow exploded outward across the battlefield. Every mind in the system connected for one impossible moment. Humans. Valari. Everyone. They felt each other.
Fear. Love.
Loneliness. Hope. The human pilots felt the terror of a mother running for her child. The Valari suddenly felt what humans carried inside themselves every day.
Grief.
Passion. Endless determination. The emotional wave slammed into the Dominion fleet like a supernova. Several Valari soldiers collapsed instantly. Others lowered their weapons in shock. Because for the first time in generations, they felt individuality. Real emotion. Not the empty balance of the chorus. Vale himself staggered backward. Tears formed in his silver eyes. What is this? Ethan answered quietly. Humanity. Silence consumed the battlefield. Then slowly, the massive destroyer cannons powered down. One by one, the Valari soldiers lowered their weapons. Vale looked toward Alara's son with a shattered expression. The child was never the threat, he whispered. Alara stepped forward carefully. No, she said softly. The truth was. Long seconds passed. Then Vale finally turned toward his fleet. Cancel the purge order. Shock spread through the Valari forces. But nobody argued, because they had all felt it. Humans were dangerous. Not because they were stronger, but because their emotions could unite strangers stronger than any hive mind ever could. The destroyers slowly pulled away from Orion Ridge. The warships turned back toward space, retreating. Captain Rice stared upward in disbelief. We actually survived. Ethan finally exhaled. The tension left his body all at once. Then Maya crashed into him, hugging him tightly. You scared me. Ethan laughed weakly and held her close. Sorry, Starlight. Nearby, Alara knelt beside her son, tears shining in her silver eyes. The little boy looked toward Ethan and smiled. Warm human, he whispered happily. Alara laughed softly through tears. Then she walked slowly toward Ethan. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, she touched his hand gently. You changed everything tonight, she whispered. Ethan smiled tiredly.
Nah.
He glanced upward toward the human fleet. People did. Alara looked at him with quiet wonder. Then she kissed him softly beneath the alien stars. And this time, she wasn't afraid anymore.